Well, today I am so excited. I have Rachel Baer with me, and Rachel is an end-of-life doula, a death doula. And we might consider that kind of a taboo topic, right? Right, definitely
That's
a
right.
taboo topic. A lot of people don't like to talk about it, but it's so important to prepare and to be ready. And I'm just looking at one of the books that she brought with her to talk with me. So it's called The Invisible String by Patrice Karst. So it looks like a lovely book. So Rachel, welcome. Thank you so
Thank you.
much for being on my show. This is your third time with me.
Yes.
So you
Thank you
have
for having me.
you have definitely survived. So, an end of life doula. Now, my daughter, when she got pregnant with her daughter, hired a doula, and doulas are typically, from what I understand, kind of more known in the birthing world. So, when you bring a baby into life, but it's really an interesting concept. How long have death doulas been in practice? Has this been going on
Oh,
for
for centuries. Centuries,
centuries?
really. But they're just now coming more into.
Vogue,
Yes,
perhaps, is the
yeah,
right way to
yeah,
describe it.
yes.
Well, and kudos to you because it takes a brave heart, I think, to be the person who would welcome that opportunity to be with somebody. And I really think it is an opportunity. I've told you before that I've lost five of my siblings. I was one of nine children, and then five of them have passed. So, with three of them, no, two of them, I was actually present in the room while they passed, and one of them I was on the telephone when he passed. He was in Hawaii, so I wasn't able. So, such a sacred, special moment, though.
Yes, yes, it definitely can be. And I think that death is so stigmatized that no one wants to talk about it. So then that breeds more fear and anxiety.
Mm,
Um, so it's a really important thing to have these conversations, firstly with yourself,
exactly.
like what do you want for your end of life plans?
Exactly.
Because there are options. You don't just have to
Absolutely.
wait till you're there and then someone decides for you. And the most important thing really is preparing your paperwork for your own end of life.
Paperwork, and we have some tools for
We
that,
do,
the
yes.
paperwork.
So,
And then just having, I don't know, like I have a friend who is moving from this area. She's been in her house for about 29 years, I believe, and moving to another area of Connecticut, and just going through closets and finding things and kind of organizing all of that. There's just so much, I think, as you age that we need to consider about that whole practice of.
yes, yeah, definitely. So you can look at it as not some big, there is a lot of paperwork to get in order, but instead of thinking of it as this huge big deal and you can't face doing it, take one thing at a time and look at it as an act of love
And there you go.
to help your family so that you're not leaving them a big mess and a big paper trail, and they won't be like clearing up your paperwork life for several years. You can have it have things in order. So I personally have a fireproof, floodproof safe with a filing system
Nice.
with my documents in. This is kind of a fun one. It's because you've got to bring a little bit of humor
I'm
into.
dead. Now what? So this would be
Yeah,
a
instead of a
gift
baby book, it's a
end of life
yeah,
book.
an end of life book. So yeah, so important information about my belongings, business affairs, and wishes. So your personal information, where your will is located.
Because sometimes that's just a
Yeah,
big deal. Like,
yeah,
where is it? Where,
yeah.
where are these important documents?
Yes,
And
yes,
kind of making like a little compact tube of, a
yes,
pneumatic tube of
yes.
all the
So that
information.
yeah, so that everything is in one place, and just and making sure your family know that you have a will and where all this stuff is really important, because life is going to be hard enough for them anyway at that time, because although you can't make it any less sad, you can, by preparing, make it so much easier and take the headache out of all of the paperwork, or not all of it, but a lot of it, a big chunk of
Eliminate,
it.
minimize
Yeah,
as much as possible. I think that's the
exactly.
best thing that we can
Yeah.
possibly do. So now, Rachel, let's back up a little bit. How did you get started? How does somebody kind of fall into this? Because previously you've been talking about chair yoga, you've been talking about the project that you did at Peretz Park, and now this. This is like your third big adventure that I've
I
seen
guess,
you on
yeah. Well,
in the
I'm
last.
still teaching the chair yoga. And I'm still working on smaller projects with the Grace Trail too.
Nice.
But I'm now volunteering at Hartford Healthcare at Home, their hospice.
Hartford, that's a tongue twister.
Yeah,
Let's repeat
it is,
that.
yes.
Hartford Healthcare
at Home.
At Home Hospice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
you have to really think about that one. But anyway, so I took the training last fall.
Okay. How long did that last? Was that just like a few?
About 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what did that entail?
Lots of reading, lectures, questions and answers, and interaction with groups.
Nice.
So that was really helpful. And I had thought about doing this hospice work or volunteering for a long time, a few years ago. And then it was just a little busy time, and I thought, I just don't know if I can do it right now.
Well, COVID too kind of put everything
Yes.
on the back burner.
Well,
I think
that's
a little
true.
bit. Yeah,
Yes.
slowed us down.
Yeah. And then I also, with our book group, we read a book called The Book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult, and I love her books anyway. And one of the main characters was a death doula.
Death doula.
Yes.
Okay.
So I had heard of this before and thought it sounded, that's cool, because I've always been fascinated about different cultures and how they treat people with death and dying.
It is a cultural thing, isn't it? It's
so
not
different.
It's not just our way. It's a variety of different ways, and we need to be respectful. I would think that each family, each unit, each person has their own wish.
Sure. Yeah. But other cultures can be so much more accepting of death. It's more of a natural cycle of things, that it's not, someone's like 90 something and the people are shocked that they've died. It's shocking perhaps more, I think. Well, it's always sad, but we shouldn't be surprised when people die, obviously, unless it's someone much younger, and that's a totally different thing than
tragic,
it is.
unexpected, right?
Yeah.
Well, my mom used to tell stories, and she was Irish. She would tell stories about when she was a kid, and they would have a parlor, I guess, or a room in the house, and they would have the person in the house who had passed away or died. Do you not like that expression, passed away?
You can totally say that. I think it's easier for people to hear that. As death doulas in our training, we were taught to say, or like actually say the word death.
Okay.
Death and dying. But yes, that can definitely be too much for people.
Okay.
So whatever you feel is going to work for
whoever
people.
you're having the conversation
of course. You don't want to, shut people out of the conversation by the words that you use. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So anyway, when my mom was a little girl, she would tell these stories where she would be in the house and the person who died, maybe her uncle or somebody, and they would have the person, I don't know if it was on a bed or a gurney or something like that, and they would kind of all be talking and having a kind of a party, like the person is still there with them and celebrating, and they would kind of say, wow, we really had a good party for Uncle Joe.
Yes, and then that was nice because you had all the kids in there, the grandchildren and the family and the neighbors, and that's what the English parlor was originally
intended for. Interesting.
Yeah.
So architecturally, there's the history that goes with why we have parlors and homes. Wow.
Yeah. So then, therefore, like everyone from a very young age would be used to the idea of death. Obviously, it's still sad, but it's not like hushed away and like cleaned away into a clinical room, and it's a natural part of life.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just remembering some of the people who lost loved ones during COVID and how that was just such a horrific experience for them, where they couldn't actually be in the room or go to whatever facility those persons were placed in.
Yeah, we had a couple of those too. And, obviously the people were in England, so we couldn't even travel. So, so it was definitely hard. So then we held celebration of life
later
last year. So instead of, so it's not the same. We were still able to get together as a family, but no, I think it's healthy to be able to be with someone when they're dying, and then neither of you feel isolated. You feel like you can say your goodbyes.
Right. The ceremony, I think, and those rituals, I think, are so important. And I think it's so important that people do come together for those events so that you can support each other.
Yeah.
And there's probably some research on some of that I don't know. It's just from my lived experience.
Yes,
I'm
definitely.
from.
That rituals definitely help. It's like a process. Like the whole ritual of marriage, or, you know, having a baby. You might have them christened, or, you know, depending what faith you're living in. If you're living within a faith, you'll follow different celebrations for having a baby or getting married. So it's the same thing when someone is dying or has died. And it kind of helps to finalize it and make it more real, I think, for people if
Absolutely.
you do something, because otherwise it can not seem real. Especially if it's a shock that someone has died. So,
right.
You know, so, yeah.
So I was looking at something recently, and it was talking about how people rally kind of towards the last stages of their life, where people, the loved ones who are surrounding the person who's preparing for death, because our bodies start to get ready for it, and they kind of rally, and people think, oh my goodness, they're getting better, they're really not going to die.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that for a minute?
It's just one of those strange things that happens, you know, phenomenons that happens, another one of those words to get your tongue around. But yes, I think it's maybe that they've been resting. I'm not sure if anyone really knows, but it's, and I'm not a hospice nurse as such, but that is often the case. Like
So
a lot of the time that they suddenly have the energy, pull that energy together to say their goodbyes.
Exactly, right.
And be there.
It's them preparing others.
Yes.
I think it's almost like it's a altruistic kind of activity where they're saying, hey, I am leaving and I will say goodbye and you will be okay, I think is kind of the message that they give. Yeah. So you got involved by taking some hospice, and you took some classes, and you took some lessons along the way. And tell me a little bit about those lessons that you learned in the process of taking the hospice classes. Is there any like little pearls of wisdom that you have from some of that came through?
I think that overall, with all of it really, with the hospice training and the training I took with Going with Grace, that was like a 3-month course, interactive course that I took. Apart from getting your paperwork in order, I think it would be to keep short accounts with yourself and with other people. Like, try not to say goodbye to someone when you're angry, you know. Tell your people that you love them often. Tell your people that you're proud of them, that you forgive them, that you forgive yourself, that you're sorry. You know, these are words to just, you know, and sentences that often we don't say.
Well, you don't want
because it's hard, right? So, you know, if you have a fight with someone, you say, oh, I'm really sorry I spoke to you like that. It doesn't have to be a big deal. But then should someone happen, like I heard yesterday something like I don't remember the percentage, but quite a reasonable number of people will go out and die in a car accident every day in America.
You don't know.
And all of these people, they were not planning on not coming home that night. So, you know, just keep those short accounts with people, and, you know.
It's better to forgive than to hold a grudge, I think.
It is. I mean, yeah, it's very difficult with some circumstances, of course. It's not something that happens overnight, but yeah, it's something to work on. And everyone is different, obviously. I'm not saying you have to forgive, but just to always let your special people know that you care about them.
You do love them, right? Well, and you don't want to die with regrets. And
no,
exactly. And you don't want someone that you've loved to be regretting something. I think it's really good to have those kinds of conversations in place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
And there's one thing that I haven't done yet, which I think is a really good idea and really important, is to write a letter to each of your children or your people. Yeah. and leave it for them. So the idea, ideally, you would probably update it every year or so,
Right.
you know, maybe on your birthday or something. And I think
Nice.
that is
I
a really
love
good
that
idea. I have
Right.
not done that yet, but it's in my head as my to-do list.
Right.
And there's very simple things you can do. Obviously, having a will is important, and being really specific in your will.
Well, and then let's back up too, because sometimes people will get a will and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I did that 20 years ago," and in the meantime, they sold the house. They,
Yeah, they might have more children,
or more children have been added to the family.
Yeah.
So, how often would you suggest people update their will?
I would suggest that when you're younger, I would suggest firstly that everyone over the age of 18 should have a will, even if it's just the free ones that you can download and do yourself.
Sure. Well, isn't there something where things go to probate if?
Yes.
So let's
exactly.
talk about that for a second.
So if you don't have a will specifying, then you could wait a very long time for things to go through probate and get, whatever
Settled.
Property
Right.
or money, and then, okay, so it's a lot of paperwork and it's time. It's just kinder to your family and easier on them if they don't have to do that. So for instance, with my bank account, I went into the bank and I added my boys
Your two
onto
sons,
my
right? And they're
onto my
adults,
bank.
yeah.
It's called payable on death.
Okay.
It's so super easy to do. My husband has also done that. And so all they would have to do then to get access to that money, instead of waiting for probate, take in a copy of my death certificate, which hopefully they won't be doing for some time, but and then they can have access to that. They don't have to wait, because I have heard of people who, particularly older people who have, perhaps they don't have their own bank account. Most younger people now do, but and then say their husband has died and they only had that one bank account and she wasn't named on it. She then had to borrow money to be able to
settle the estate,
yeah,
basically,
exactly,
right?
until it all came through. So
the funeral home. I mean, there's a lot of decisions that you have to make. You just think the person is gone, but no. You have to write the obituary. But let's talk about that death certificate before we move on. How many copies would you suggest that we get of the death certificate?
I would suggest a certified copies, 10 to 12.
10 to 12. Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and I think in Connecticut they're around $20 each.
And it seems expensive at the time, but people do want the bona fide, real, certified
They do,
version.
and it would make it much easier, sure. And another huge thing is our all your passwords and your subscriptions.
Oh, wow. Almost like having a book with all of those things in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. When my sister died, she had a recurring appointment with a physician, and they were billing us for missed appointments. So, so it's kind of like, we didn't know about it. She was single, lived on her own kind of thing, but then moved in with my brother and his family, and that's where she died. But then we got these bills, and it's just like, oh my gosh, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things, the passwords, the ongoing appointments, the subscriptions you have. What else falls into that category?
Oh, things like social media. Like you can go, there's a setting in Facebook you can go into, and you can name a person who can take over your account should you die. And then they can put it into a memorial page.
Well, it's just like Sirius XM or your Apple ID and like all of those.
Yeah, if people don't know, like if your partner doesn't know that you have those subscriptions and where they are, the information is, then people will keep on paying for these subscriptions long after, because the money is on an automatic payout.
Exactly.
So,
And I know with my mom, when she died, that there was an account that we found that we weren't aware of that was and the lawyer was really good, and he did some research on it and found it and said, well, there's a little bit of, pot.
I think that's quite a common thing, yes. So have your accounts. In my folder I have my bank accounts and with all the forms, and,
It really is a gift.
It makes it easier.
Yeah.
And I haven't got everything done. I'm still working on it, but at least, we've had those conversations and have, just have those conversations, and what you want for end of life too? Like, do you want to be kept alive at all costs?
Oh, there you go. That's
you
another
know, that's
one.
a
Like
huge
a living
thing.
will is
Yes,
what, another name for that too,
yeah.
right? Like
Advanced healthcare directive. So
oh, that's the other word for it. Advanced healthcare directives.
yeah,
Wow.
so definitely get that. So I'm pretty sure that one in Connecticut, I may be wrong because I'm not an attorney, but I'm pretty sure we had to get ours notarized.
Which is easy to do. Typically,
Which
you
is
could
very
just go
easy
to
to
the
do.
bank. You know, if you have an account and you've been there for a while, they're happy to give a notary too, right?
Yeah, we just got ours done at our attorneys, but it's important. And you mentioned about wills. So every time, once you've made your will, when you're younger, you're probably good to wait quite a long time. But once you've had any major life change, so you get married,
get married,
babies. If you suddenly inherit a lot of money, then perhaps maybe you want to do something different with it. Do you want to leave some of your money as a legacy to
a nonprofit
that you believe in, or
because people don't know. People don't know where you want your money to go or what, right?
Yeah, and I know we don't have a huge amount of time to talk about all of this, but one super important thing is that 70% of American households have pets.
Oh.
So I have 2 cats, and there is no way that I want them to go back into a rescue shelter.
Because you rescued them
to begin with, and they would not at all do well.
And if they're cats, they might live to be 20, 25 years old, right?
The
life expectancy, or if you have a parrot
or
a snake. Snakes live a long time, right? I mean,
I guess they do.
I'm not a snake person either.
No, but put them in your will. Like, we've added our cats into our will, and we have someone named in there, and we've left them enough money to look after them for several years. So it's just a good thing to do, because so often you see these poor animals in the shelters because their person has died.
Right. So, and if there's somebody who'd be willing to take on.
Yeah.
So anyway, Rachel, wow, we just have flown through this time together.
Oh, it's such a huge subject. So
which of these books would you like to?
Oh gosh, let me start with this one.
Okay.
Well, even if there's only one, this is like
a beginner's guide to the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
If anyone was going to read anything, I would get this. It's a bit like, it says on it, it's a book that every family should have, the equivalent of Dr. Spock, but for the other phase of life. So it basically tells you everything that you need to know. And it's easy to read. It's in chunks. It's instructional.
B.J. Miller, M.D., and Shoshana Berger, is that who the authors are?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, this guy here, B.J. Miller, he has an amazing TED Talk on the important things in life, what's important.
That's good to know, a TED Talk. Okay. Now, Rachel, are you available, like if, for instance, somebody needed you, they were wanting, could we hire you? Is there a website? Are you up for?
I will be shortly, yes.
Is there a health license that goes with being a death doula?
I will need to finish off my website here. I do have a homepage currently, so it's restassured-ct.com.
Okay.
And
Rachel at restassured-ct.com. Okay.
Yes.
And if we just Google your name, will it pop up? Well,
Yes,
I love your
I'm
card.
sure it
This is so beautiful. Let's have a conversation about death, information, advice, and planning for the end of life. Now, have you actually been with somebody when they passed away?
Not when they've passed away, no. When they have been in the final stages of dying, but sometimes that can take hours or days, you know. So yes, I have been, and I'm obviously with hospice, like people are not dying as such, but they're in their last few weeks or months or whatever, you know. And it can be obviously it's sad, but it can be also a very special time for the family. It is a very special
time, is how I see it. And the thing I think that's really important for people to know, and I'm sure you agree with this, is that it was the day before my sister was dying, and we had a conversation, and she had tears coming down the side of her face, and people were acting like she couldn't hear or that she wasn't processing. She truly was processing everything I was saying to her, and it's just so important to normalize and to respect them, I think, right?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's such a beautiful thing. And do you help sometimes? We just have a couple minutes left. I know that people do some of the cleaning and the preparing of the body, and that's something that you do. I know the paperwork is really important, but then there's the physical component.
If people want to do that themselves, and they can, some families now do want to wash the body themselves and wrap it, which can be a very healthy thing to do, and other families just don't, in which case the funeral directors will obviously take care of that. They're very knowledgeable. So it just depends what kind of involvement the person and their family want.
It's a personal choice, but also some people really see it as a huge privilege to be able to have that opportunity to give them their last bath, perhaps.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, if somebody dies in your home, you don't need to call 911 or the ambulance, or right? How is there?
You would call, assuming that the person is under hospice care, you call your hospice nurse or your hospice office, and you will have that number, or call your hospice volunteer, because they will know what to do. That you don't need to call 911 because the person is already passed; they can't do anything.
Right.
But
you don't need to call them right away, is what I'm saying.
No,
like people can come over. People
exactly.
Can,
you can have that time
and be with the body.
Yeah.
And yeah. But also then there's the whole thing about like what to do with your body if you want it cremated, or if you want to dedicate your body to science, donate your body to science, if you want a big fancy casket, if you want a more natural death.
You can have a green burial. It's not available everywhere in Connecticut, but in some places, so it's much more environmentally friendly.
Well, Rachel, thank you so much. You're just a wealth of knowledge and wisdom, and such a joy, and such a delightful person to know and to be with. So thank you so much for sharing your latest, newest adventure.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We'll have to come back.